Namaskaram. A very warm welcome to each and every one of you to the Bhogya's Swasti Shri webinar series, the sixth one, focusing on the higher education and learning. My name is Malati. I am the founder of Bhogya.online, a platform that is community-driven and socio-cultural. What I mean by community-driven is that we are in existence for the expat Indians spread across all over Europe, and the sole aim of Bhogya.online is to help these expat Indians stay connected to their roots. Our aim is also to make this place or to make this world more lovable and sustainable. What I mean by lovable and sustainable is not that we have different lifestyle changes, or we switch to natural cosmetics, or we eat organic food. No. What I really mean by lovable is to have good thoughts. For it's the thought that differentiates one human being from another, and with better thoughts, a better world can be achieved. Now, for us to have good thoughts, experiences are very important, and that is what we aim to provide at Bhogya.online. We provide experiences that matter to make this world more lovable and sustainable. And how we do it? We are driven by our three-word culture: engage, enrich, and elevate. Now, you can find more information on our website, www.Bhogya.online. Now, we are celebrating our second anniversary over a period of 1 year through our Swasti Shri webinar series. Swasti means well-being, and Shri has many meanings, among others being auspiciousness. And well-being can be seen from different perspectives. It can be physical well-being, emotional well-being, psychological well-being, sociological, or spiritual well-being. Now, throughout this series, we are going to be approaching our well-being from all of these perspectives, and I'm hopeful that we can all benefit from the views and expertise shared by our speakers that will be shared on Bhogya.online. Now, as I told you, this webinar today is going to be focusing on higher education in Europe, for which we have a couple of experts who are living and working out of Europe. Before we jump into the webinar session, I would like to talk about a few ground rules which I think are very important for the webinar to progress smoothly. One, we are going to be recording the session. I'm sure all of you would have seen that as you entered the webinar room. So we are going to be recording this, and we will be posting this on our website, on our YouTube channel, and also publicizing across various social media channels. So in case you do not wish that you be seen, you could turn off your videos at any point of time. If you want to be seen, you could turn on your videos. But considering the bandwidth, I would request you to remain unseen, or rather turn off your videos during the course of the webinar as the speakers speak. But once their sessions are over and we open it up for the Q&A session, you could obviously turn on your videos and ask your questions. So the flow of the webinar is going to be like we bring on the speaker one, which is going to be, I would come to that soon. So we would have the speakers speak one after the other, and we will take up the questions at the end of the sessions of both the speakers. So at any point of time, as the speakers speak, if you have any questions, you could leave that in the chat window. We will take them up at the end of the speaker sessions. Yeah? So very simple rules. I guess it's easy. So with that, we would start with welcoming Ms. Jaya Krishna Kumar. Actually, it's Jayalakshmi Krishna Kumar. Someone whom I know for the last few years. Yeah. She's a full professor of econometrics at the University of Geneva in Switzerland, and her research interests include, very vast subjects, but all focusing on econometrics. She has many publications in well-known international econometrics and economics journals, to mention a few. The Journal of Econometrics, the Oxford Bulletin of Economics and Statistics, Computational Statistics and Data Analytics. The list is endless. She's also a fellow of Human Development and Capability Association, an associate editor of the Journal of Human Development and Capabilities and the International Journal of Public Health. She has written, edited, contributed in econometric books published in collections such as Lecture Notes in Economics and Mathematical Systems with the Springer, Contributions to Economic Analysis by Elsevier, and Advanced Studies in Theoretical and Applied Econometrics, Clover Academic Springer. She has also contributed chapters in the Handbook of Capability Approach, Cambridge University Press, New Frontiers of the Capability Approach, and Research in Social Science and Disability by Emira. She is also a member of the advisory panel for the Human Development Reports of the UNDP and the International Advisory Board of the Multidimensional Biodiversity Index Project of UNEP WCMC. She has been a member of the Academic Experts Panel for World Bank's Women, Business and the Law Index 2019, as well as an advisor for the SDG Action Manager launched by B-Lab along with the UN Global Compact in 2020. In addition to her academic work, she's also very actively involved in various community work. She's a member of the Indian Association of Geneva, the Vedantic Center Geneva, and the Geneva Interreligious Platform. She has represented Hinduism in several interreligious debates on Swiss television and radio, and in roundtable discussions organized by interreligious platforms. She's a founder of the Visishtadvaita group of Switzerland, and she coordinates weekly satsangs of this group devoted to learning the Hindu philosophy. A very warm welcome, Ms. Jayakrishna Kumar. She's going to be talking to us about, with her vast experience that spreads across a few decades, she's going to talk first a little bit about education in general. Its role in the development of an individual as well as of a society and a nation. Then she'll go on to talk about the education system in Europe, and she'll talk about the main features and also cover a few subject choices. And she'll of course talk about econometrics, which is her field of expertise. So with that, I welcome Ms. Jayakrishna Kumar to talk to us about the higher education in Europe. Over to you.
Thank you. Namaskaram and hello to everyone. First of all, I would like to thank Bhogya.online and in particular Mrs. Malati for inviting me to this webinar and for this very kind introduction. I'm very happy to take part in this Swasti Shri webinar series. Education in Europe, higher education in Europe is a vast topic, and the introduction that was given by Malati already gave a flavor of all that we can talk about under this topic. And it's difficult to cover such a wide theme in about 15-20 minutes. So what I thought I will do is focus on a few important aspects, important according to me, and I hope we can touch upon the others in the Q&A session. So as Malati was saying, please feel free to ask all your questions in the chat box or in the Q&A box, and we'll come to that later. So the outline was already given. So I'll first talk a little bit about education in general, higher education in general, and its importance for life. And then I go to the education landscape in Europe, and finally a few words on my field or on social sciences and including economics. Education, the importance of education. Well, we all know, first of all, I don't have any PowerPoint slides to share because I think most of the what I'm going to say does not need any big visual support. And sometimes even, if it is not useful for the understanding of what I'm saying, the visual support can be even distracting. So I think I will just stick to an oral presentation. So I was coming to education, the role of education. We all know that education plays a key role in the development of a nation as well as the development of an individual. At the level of the nation, at the macro level, it is generally agreed now that a developed nation, a developed country, is not only one which has a higher per capita income or wealth, but the definition of development itself, the definition of well-being of a society, goes beyond income and wealth and covers many other dimensions which are all relevant for a good life, what we call a good life, can be defined as a good life, such as, and among all these dimensions that are important for a good life, the first and foremost comes health, of course, and then education. So health and education are two important ingredients in the constituents of what is a good life, or what is development, or what is well-being. Plus, of course, there you have all the other dimensions like, a social harmony, social relations, environmental quality, spiritual progress. So there are as many dimensions as one can think of. The list is not exhaustive, but to say that it goes beyond income and wealth, it goes beyond material aspects of well-being. And there is a general consensus on this among people who are theorists in the development literature, practitioners, policymakers. So this is kind of a widely agreed concept of development. In fact, this concept of development, which goes beyond economic development, is sometimes or is called the human development, to make sure that we cover all aspects of what a human life should be involved with. Similarly, at the individual level, education plays a key role in the development of an individual, in the flourishing of the individual. And first of all, also I need to say here that education, what we mean by education is not just a formal academic education, but it also, all that contributes to an expansion of knowledge, expansion of knowledge, including life skills that Malti was already talking about, soft skill, all that is important for a good development of an individual. All that so education from a holistic point of view. So we know that educated persons are able to have richer life. I mean, there are numerous studies that show that they are able to have richer life experiences. They are able to flourish better, and they are able to make better life choices, or they are able to take a better advantage of the opportunities that life offers to them. So this is something irrespective of whether one is doing a job or anything like that. So this is what I would call the intrinsic value of education. So education helps people have better lives in many ways. And also education, I mean, even at the macro level, we see a high correlation between education and health. For example, an educated population tends to be a healthier population, and so on. So education has an intrinsic value, a value for itself, value in its contribution to the welfare, to the well-being of an individual or a nation or a society. Now, education also has other values as instrumental values. For example, like a better education, a higher education makes you have a better job, earn better. So that is what I would call an instrumental. And that is also important because, because these are other things that people want to achieve in life and for which education plays a very important role. So education, whether it's intrinsic or instrumental, it's an important part of life. At the individual level, for an individual as well as for a nation, for a society. Now let me go to this because most often people think of education as something that's useful for getting a good job. But I just want to insist on the fact that even without looking for employment, education helps in many, many, many different ways in one's life. Now go to the education scenario in Europe, education landscape in Europe, higher education. One of the salient features of the education system in Europe, especially in contrast to the US, countries like the US or India, is that the main, if not the only, in such certain situations or certain cases, the main education provider is the public sector, is the government. Public schools and colleges are the main places of learning. And not only that, they are of a very high quality. So the government, whether it's at the national level or the state level or the regional level or the municipal level, a good percentage of the income of the government, the tax revenue, is spent on education. And not only building schools, but also, giving proper infrastructure to them, giving proper facilities to them, providing the teachers with a decent salary, and so on. So a lot of the tax revenue, government's income goes for improving education or providing education. So most schools are public, and the vast majority of the students go to public schools, whether it's at the high school level or whether it's at the higher education and the university level. Also, important to note that these higher education institutions are, if you look at the ranking of universities in Europe, they will be among the top. So they are very highly ranked. That not only they are of top quality in terms of standard of education, but they are also highly ranked in terms of performances. So, so that is something which is an important feature, and which kind of differentiates the education systems from other of other countries. One important corollary of that, consequence of that, is that it is, because it is public, it is free. The cost is very nominal. It's heavily subsidized by the government. And of course, they might have some private funding too. Of course, private funding is not excluded, but the main source of funds is the government. So it is free and it is accessible to all. So here you have some good quality education, free and accessible to all, whether it's high school, as I said, school, or even at the institution level. So that is one of the important features and something which is a very, unique or very, special to Europe. But Europe has many different countries and they all have different national languages. So one aspect that may be kind of discouraging for people who are coming from other places is that the medium of education tends to be, at least at the school level and at the initial bachelor's level in the universities, tends to be in the national language. So that means, for example, it would be in German in Germany, in Italian in Italy, in French in France, etc. So that could be sometimes a kind of thought of as a barrier for people coming from other places and also maybe from India. But for most of the second generation students who've been here and who have learned the language, it's not going to be a problem. But it may be a problem for people coming from other countries and even from other countries in Europe. But I should say that most of the time there is a support system. That is, there is a system by which these students can take courses in the language courses in parallel or maybe prior to joining, and in an accelerated manner to be able to cope with the education. And I myself have done that. So it's not I myself have switched from the English to French when I went to higher education. So I don't think it's the system is, there is a sound support system for which really, and that is again, very nominal cost or almost cost free. For not only in the school level, it's not only for the students who are joining, but also for the parents of the students, so that they can help the students in their education. So there's a nice offer of language courses that the students can avail of. And in fact, for Indian students of Indian origin, I would say that they have a natural kind of ability to learn languages, because of the fact that even within India, they already know a few languages, not just one language. So this is going to be like French is going to be one more language to learn. And so I think generally people of Indian origin do well in learning new languages and then coping with the education in that new language. So, but that is something which one needs to know. And as you go at the higher levels, masters and PhD levels, of course, most of the courses are offered in English, and so there shouldn't be any problem. Most of the universities offer many programs in English. In fact, even at the bachelor's level, universities have started offering to attract international students. Like, for example, in Geneva University, we have in the economics faculty, we have a bachelor's in economics and management, which is bilingual. That means all the compulsory courses, at least that are offered in French, are also offered in English. Some electives may be only in French, but of course, the people who do not know French, they can skip the elective. Another important feature, a unique feature of the education system in Europe, is that there is a harmonization of the education system across the different countries in Europe. Majority, I think the most, in fact, if not all, of the European universities have signed what is called the Bologna Convention. So all the signatories of the Bologna Convention have a harmonized system of education at the bachelor's, master's, and PhD level. For example, the bachelor's will be about 180 credits, master's will be 90 or 120 credits. So these credits are uniform across the different European universities. And so you get a bachelor's in Italy will be recognized in Germany because the credits are the same. And these are what is called the transferable credits. So the system is called European Credit Transfer System, ECTS. So they're called ECTS credits. And so all credits earned in a university in one country will be recognized, acknowledged in another country, as long as these universities are signatories of the Bologna Convention. And as I said, a huge majority of these universities are part of the Bologna system. And so you can go have a bachelor, do a bachelor's in one country, and then a master's, for example, in another country. And the transfer in terms of credits is almost quasi-automatic. In fact, even within the same program, like bachelor's, you can do a semester abroad, or 1 year abroad, which many students avail of, because these credits, again, you can spend a semester, earn credits somewhere else in some other country, and then those credits will be credited into your bachelor's and your home institution. So that is, again, one big advantage and that offers a huge mobility opportunities, and a lot of students take advantage of this mobility programs and go do, so that you can be in a new environment, learn new things, and make new friends and things like that. So there is a huge mobility among the different universities in terms of faculty too, but definitely for the students, because the credits are all harmonized, uniform, and recognized. And then I was also asked to say a little bit about the subjects, the choice of subjects that are available. And what to choose. For example, if you're at the end of high school and you want to go to a bachelor's program, how would you choose your subject? Of course, this is so individual dependent, context dependent. It's very difficult to give some general formula, recipes that are going to work for everybody. But what I can say is some big, general guiding factors. One of the important things in terms of the choice of a subject is the interest of the student. So one has to be interested in the subject in order to do a good, to be doing well in a bachelor's program. So choose a subject, I would say, choose a subject that interests you. In fact, to the extent of, I can even say that passionate, that really you're passionate about. Of course, you can say maybe, at the high school level, it may be difficult to be passionate about the subject, because you're still learning the different subjects. One of the factors that really makes a difference is the teachers. So most of the time, the teacher, the inspiration and the motivation given by the teacher is an important factor in the choice of the subject. You like a subject because, of course, you have a personal interest in it, maybe, but also because the teacher is good and has really motivated you to go further in that subject. But also know that there are a lot of choices available in these universities. Disciplinary choices, what we call disciplinary choices, that is a big bachelor's, let's say disciplinary bachelor's will be something of a bachelor's in physics, or a bachelor's in economics, or a bachelor's in biology, or a bachelor's in political science. These are already kind of defined disciplines. And then, but also there are many universities which already offer at the bachelor's level some interdisciplinary programs. That is, you have one discipline as your major focus, but then you can also learn, do a minor or something else in another discipline related to it, because in most of the universities, again, that's maybe something which differentiates from US universities, is that at the bachelor's levels, the program tend to be focused, more focused around the discipline of the bachelor's. That is, if you do an economics, it'll be in economics, of course, you will have exposure to related subjects like law, sociology, history, political science, and other things, but you may not have the possibility of doing physics or astronomy or chemistry within a bachelor's in economics. Whereas in the US, you might combine many different subjects, music, creative writing, physics, astronomy, English, literature, and economics, political science. Whereas that kind of a wide, combination may not be available, but still you will get an exposure to all the related disciplines. So that's a disciplinary. And then, as I said, you can have also do a minor, one major and one minor thing. So the minor can be in another subject. Also note that in Europe, the it's all, I mean, in general, the logic for doing this disciplinary focus is to say that, okay, you have to have a solid foundation in one discipline. And then maybe you can do other disciplines, learn about other disciplines. So the idea is to be strongly rooted in one discipline. Otherwise, you sort of, as they say, end up being a jack of all trades and master of none. So have a kind of a good, sound, solid foundation in one discipline, and then you can learn other disciplines. So that's the reason why you want to focus on one discipline. But so in order to come up with a subject of choice, I think you have all these factors that you can take into account, especially the programs offered in different universities. Plus, there are also other things you can do. Like, of course, the first thing is to discuss with your parents, because the parents know you very well. They know your personality, they know your aptitudes, and they can advise because they are very interested in your well-being. They can also other people like teachers, because teachers also have been with you, they have been with you for a long time, and they can advise on what are the possibilities for each of the subjects, especially the teachers of the subject in which you want to go for further studies. And then, of course, other peers who are doing these subjects already, maybe 1 year, 2 years senior to you, or who are, have done it, so that they can tell you what the curriculum is and what it has to offer. So that would be, I would say, all these factors are important. And of course, also, kind of a network that you might have in a place, in a location. For example, you have family in a place, so then you might want to prefer that to some other place, because you already know some people around there. But then, having said all this, suppose you say that, okay, you make a choice and you go for a bachelor's. And then a few months down the line, you say, okay, I don't think I'm made for the subject. I don't like the subject. Then absolutely no problem, because you can always change. Most of the universities offer what I can call bridges, that is going from one bachelor's to another, switching. And the worst case scenario, you lose a year and you start all over again. But then in a span, think of it, in a lifespan of 100 years, 1 year, 6 months doesn't make any difference at all. So you don't have to continue doing something which is, which you may not like. So if you do it for a few months and then realize that you don't want to continue with it, then they just go for another, whatever you like, you think you prefer. So there are ample opportunities for switching from one discipline to the other. And this is very, very, not extremely, but quite common, that people realize, because it's true that at the high school level, you may not have a clear idea of what you really want to do. And so you want to try out something, and then you figure out maybe it's not that what I wanted, and then you go to something else. Okay, so now then there are other higher studies, a master's and PhD. And masters, I would say, okay, again, there are two major paths. What we call a consecutive master's, that is, if you do a bachelor's in economics, you go for a master's in economics, that's called a consecutive path. Or you go for a bachelor's in economics and go for a master's in an interdisciplinary subject, as I said, because you've got a strong foundation in one, but you would like to know what other disciplines have to say about certain things. So then that's, again, at the master's level, the choice is even wider, because many universities have these, they're very innovative programs, interdisciplinary programs, including the University of Geneva, for example. We have Malati was talking about sustainability. We have launched a new master's recently on sustainability, human development, and innovation. It's a big success. You have masters in international relations, which combine history, law, political science, economics, of course, everything. So, and then you have environmental sciences, right? It combines actually science as well as social sciences. What is scientifically what is possible, technologically what is possible, the impact on society, and how we want to measure that impact, and how we want to be zero impact if possible, or the least negative impact. So zero negative impact and the maximum positive impact. So there are wide and global health with the pandemic, of course, the public health, global health. Again, you want to have a medical point of view, but also from a sociological point of view, from an economic point of view, from all kinds of different points of view, from a psychological point of view, because the pandemic has had also very many people have had psychological impact. So there are many different interdisciplinary studies at the master's level, and so you have a wide choice. But if you're going to interfere, because there are people who can be clear, then you can go in your own subject. So physics, bachelor physics, master physics, and then PhD physics. So now I come to the PhD, but at the master's level, one more thing I probably would say is that you also want to think of what you want to do as a career already. Bachelor's level, maybe yes, but sometimes it's maybe too early. But at the master's level, yes, the choice of subject should be interest as well as where you want to develop a career. Again, they go together, right? You want to develop a career in a subject in which you're interested. And then there is the higher level, which that is not necessary for everybody, but for people who want to go deep into a subject, will be the PhD. And who want to aim for an academic career, that will be a PhD. So, but then for a PhD, of course, it's mostly disciplinary. There are some universities which offer interdisciplinary, but PhD is about taking one issue and going deep into it. So that tends to be really disciplinary, although you will take the perspectives of other disciplines into your research. So then that will be a kind of a very consecutive kind of path, that is bachelor's in economics, master's in economics, PhD in economics, bachelor's in physics, master's in physics, PhD in physics. Of course, in between at the master's level, you can do a deviation, go into disciplinary studies, another master. So because most of the PhDs will want masters in that particular subject. So PhD economics will want a master's in economics, but if you have a master's in economics as well as international relations or development studies or environmental studies, that's an added thing. So that would be the kind of paths and the kind of choices available. Now, in terms of universities, there are so many rankings of universities that are available everywhere, and then general rankings in each field. And so I think I would just say, I won't dwell too much on that. I would just say consult these rankings and then you choose your universities. But just maybe one important thing to be aware of is that people say don't put all your eggs in the same basket. So always put all the top only apply to top universities, not because you won't be selected, but because everybody applies them. So even if you're good, sometimes you may not be selected because there are very limited number of places and too many people applying. So what people suggest, and what I would also do, is that take some top universities, your dream universities, and then take some good universities which are good and which are kind of are particularly good in the subject, not necessarily highly ranked in general, but particularly good the subject that you are. So there are some niche. There are universities that have specialized in some niche topics. So that will be interesting, and also some universities where you have a chance of getting in. So I would say top, good, and medium universities, or do a mix of all that, so that you have you're sure to go further and pursue your studies or career. Now, finally, let me finish with, I hope I'm still in time, finish with a few words on my field. And that's an example of an which used to be, maybe could have been called interdisciplinary, but now it's a discipline in itself. In fact, I should say that when you choose a subject nowadays compared to even about 20 years ago or 30 years ago, the range of new disciplines that have come up is enormous. So even disciplinary programs, there are many new disciplines that have come up in recent years, and so the choice is even wider than about 20 years or 30 years ago. Now, so what is econometrics? And that's something which is good. I mean, it may be even for others, it may be interesting as an approach, because in most of the social sciences, whether it's economics, whether it's, sociology, whether it's political science, it's all about human behavior, right? It's trying to understand, predict, human behavior, whether it's individually or whether it's in groups and things like that. And maybe even regulation. It's trying to understand so that it can be regulated. So and how do so how do theories about human behavior come up? Is basically by historically speaking, economics and other social science disciplines have looked at human behavior from a perspective or in a very deductive manner. That is, the theories are formulated, basically the theories of human behavior or economic behavior are formulated by kind of an intellectual reasoning, I would say, to say that, okay, why would a certain individual behave in a certain way? And then they say, what motivates the individual? In economics, a typical example is they say, okay, you do something because you want to be, you are looking for some satisfaction out of it, some happiness out of it. So motivation is satisfaction, personal satisfaction or happiness or whatever, but it could be other motivations too. So then you are trying to do something to buy a good or buy something, consume things in order to increase your satisfaction and maximize your satisfaction. So this is something which in general, I'm not going to go into the details, but sometimes it's called irrational behavior. People do things because they want to maximize their satisfaction out of it. So then, so these are kind of axiomatic. You develop some hypotheses about what are the factors, and then you come to some laws or theories about human behavior or economic agents' behavior. But then one needs to know whether is it the way things happen in practice or not, because these are, as I said, mostly deductive. You formulate hypotheses on what you think people are doing, but then you need to worry about whether they're actually doing it in practice or not. So you've got to confront that, your theory, your model, with actual life, with real life data. So then you need to go get the data out of from people, because when you say, for example, what do they consume? Why do they consume certain things? You have to go and find out what do they consume, what are their circumstances, because some circumstances may also explain what are their personal preferences, what are their personal characteristics, everything about people. And also from many people, get that data, analyze, and in terms of confronting that real life data with the theory that you've come up with. So this and to validate or not. Sometimes theories are validated, sometimes they're not validated, and so you formulate new theories. So this confrontation of theory with data coming from sampling. So you need to know sampling design, you need to know survey sampling, you need to know how to confront. First of all, you need to get your theory in terms of a model. So you need to know some in terms of a mathematical structure. So you need to know some maths. And then you want to confront the theory with the data. So you need to know some statistical techniques, statistical estimation procedures or inference procedures. And then you data analysis. So which means all that is going to be done in a computer. You cannot do it manually with the amount of data there is. So you need to have coding capabilities or some computer software abilities. So in order to do all that, you need some theory, whether it's economics, it could be even political science, working behavior of individuals. So some theoretical knowledge in the discipline that you're in, some data, collection, data collection, how you collect good data, data analysis, computer software, capabilities, and then statistics, a lot of statistics, a lot of maths. So it already combines many disciplines, right? So this is what econometrics does. It actually does this confrontation and tells you whether the theory is validated or not. And if it is validated, then with that econometric model, what you can do is predict. If you understand what people are doing, because you seem to, the data, you have understood the data, what the data says, then you can predict people's behavior. And you can also regulate. For a government which wants to improve people's lives and want them to take certain decisions, they can influence certain decisions using certain instruments. And so you can predict people's behavior, you can make policy decisions out of it, you can put good policies in place because you know what the effect of your policy will be, because the model will tell you. So all this are users of doing this empirical exercise. And this empirical model is a basis for your understanding, analysis, as I said, forecasting, policy overall. So all this is part of econometrics. So econometrics is already a multidisciplinary thing, but over the years, it started in the early, mid-90s, let's say, and 1990s, mid-1900s. So 1950s around, or 1938, I think the Econometric Society was formed, if I'm not mistaken. So now it has become a discipline in itself. So a lot of disciplines which have come up as already, combining many other disciplines, have now become new disciplines. And for example, General University used to offer, because I went to this because of my interest in math, but I wanted to do math, but math applied to, to the society, or to the improvement of society. So I said, okay, math applied to economics. And they offered a program in which you could do bachelor's in economics with a specialization in quantitative techniques. And at the master's level, it was master's in econometrics directly. So there are new disciplines, but these are I'm sure there are many, many examples in other disciplines. So there is a wide range of subjects, and it's just, I think, the world is there to you. I think with that, I might stop here and then maybe, go on with the questions. Thank you. And I'll finish once again by thanking the other members.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Jayakrishna Kumar. That was a wonderful overview of, what education is and the educational landscape in Europe. You talked about various possibilities in Europe, and also specifically talking about econometrics, which is, in fact, a multidisciplinary option, but with a lot of focus on maths and statistics and its application in the real world. So thank you very much. We'll take the questions at the end of the speakers, after both the speakers have spoken. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave it in the chat window. We will take it up at the end of the session. And so thank you once again, Dr. Krishna Kumar. So we are now ready to welcome our next speaker, Dr. Ravindra Peravali, who's a group leader and head of screening center at the Institute of Biological and Chemical Systems, Biological Information Processing at the Karlsruhe Institute of Technology in Germany. He holds a master's degree in electrical engineering from the United States of America and a PhD, magna cum laude in biology from the Heidelberg University in Germany. He has been teaching STEM subjects, science, technology, engineering, and management subjects with his engineering and biology background. He teaches subjects which deals with chemomics and mnemonics. I have to learn this myself. I've never come across these terms before I actually had a look at his profile. So I'm all ears for what this is going to mean. And then he also teaches biology-related subjects at the Heidelberg University and the Karlsruhe Institute of Technology. He's been teaching since 2013. He's a recipient of several awards, to mention a couple of them, which is the NIH NCATS Aspire Award and the Cold Spring Harbor Asia Fellowship Award. He has several publications in several leading journals such as the IEEE, the iSciences, Hans Joten, Sanger, Mano, to name a few. Now, the topics of his research are very diverse, ranging from prostate cancer to zebrafish to in vitro applications, to name a few again. Dr. Ravindra will be talking about, specific to Germany, he's going to be talking about introduction to higher education in Germany with a special focus on STEM studies. And he will guide us on how to choose a good program. And most importantly, he's going to be talking about the do's and don'ts for a student aspiring for higher education in Germany. Over to you, Dr. Ravindra.
Yeah, perfect. Can you all hear me? That was a very nice talk, Dr. Krishna Kumar. So my focus is actually going to be a little bit different from where from what you presented. So I will actually use a visual thing. So I will share some kind of slides. um, Purely because the concept of what I was asked to present today was how you can go ahead with education in Europe, and especially from a German perspective. So in that sense, I'm going to share something that's probably much more so let's see, how do we do this? Share the screen. So can you all see this?
No, not yet.
Not yet, sir.
Not yet. Now?
Yeah, now it is visible.
Yeah, that's fine. So what I am going to talk today is about higher education from a German perspective, and this was supposed to be the topic of my talk. So essentially, in the German school system, you have an upward kind of a development. So you start from the kindergarten, you go into what you call a Grundschule, that is the basic first level of the schools, and you then
Ravindra, sorry to interrupt you. Can you
yeah,
put that in presentation mode so that everyone can see that clear?
is that fine
Yeah.
now?
Yeah, now it's good. Thank you.
Yeah. So you start from a kindergarten to go into the Grundschule and what you call the ground or the basic school, and then you diversify into three different parts of the school systems. Um, so what I want to talk to you about today is how each and every single vertical of these school systems can can somehow contribute towards your higher education. So the Hauptschule is something that is absolutely basic and somehow determines uh, how you are going to do a vocational training or something like this. And the Realschule is something that is in between, where you can somehow determine how you go between a vocational training and an academic training, and the gymnasium is an academic training. Yeah. So just to set the basic things straight. So the question now is, what do you do? Okay, so I'm going to be here a little bit more practical as opposed to Dr. Krishna Kumar, who was more of a generalistic perspective. I'm trying to be a little bit more practical here. So, what do you do with every single of these options? Okay, so if a person passes out of out of a Hauptschule, that is the so what are the options that he has? So most of the people think that once you do this, you're done and you have no other options for real academic progress, but that's not true. Okay, so you can go from Hauptschule to the Realschule, and then from the Realschule to the gymnasium, and then get your passing out certificate and go to the university. It's possible. And then there are a lot of people who actually do this. It's unfortunate that at the beginning that you land up in the Hauptschule. That's possibly because of choice or because of certain other criteria. So what are the negatives? You need several years of practical training. So you have to at least spend from the passing out of the Hauptschule to the gymnasium, you have to spend at least another 5-6 years before you actually can get into the passing out grade to get into the university level. So that's one thing. But if you want to do it, you can do it. And most people don't recognize this, and then they assume that once you get into Hauptschule, that's the end of the story. Okay, so again, as I said, this is a German perspective. Yeah. What happens when you get into the Realschule or the gymnasium? Both the Realschule and the gymnasium school systems have fantastic academic possibilities. So the Realschule, some people choose that, but again, as I said, you can always go into the gymnasium at a given time, and then complete your passing out grade. The gymnasium is obviously you're directly ready for the university. But does that mean that you are actually ready for the university? I don't think so. So many of the people who choose to go into the gymnasium choose it purely because of certain pressures. Yeah. So you have to go to a gymnasium, therefore you go into a gymnasium. Yeah. And what is the point of getting a grade of 3.5 or something like this in a gymnasium when you're not going to get into a good university? So sometimes it makes a lot of sense to go to a Realschule, finish, and then move actually into the gymnasium. You may lose a couple of years, but then move into the university, and then from there go into the finish your gymnasium and then finish your passing out grade. And this actually makes you much more ready for the university as opposed to directly going through the gymnasium process. So it's not like you're going to lose too much time. Actually, you're gaining a lot of gaining a lot of knowledge and experience and everything. So what is the higher education system? Nobody even talks about this. Yeah. So the higher education system in Europe is divided into 5 parts. Okay, so I put 5 different blocks here. So you have the university itself, and then you have the University of Applied Sciences. Then you have something called the colleges of art, music, and film, which people don't know about. Yeah. So if somebody is interested in art, you can already go into this stream directly after your school finishing grade. And then you have something called cooperative education, which in German is called Berufsakademie, and you have private universities. So you have 5 different streams of higher education, and most of the people actually focus only on the first 2, the university, or you focus on the University of Applied Sciences. Okay, so think about it. You have, for your children, you have options which are much more wider than what is generally portrayed. So what are the typical questions that come up with? So you start with a bachelor's, then you go to your master's, then you go to your doctoral studies if you want to. Okay, so how do you choose a program? So the interesting thing is, in Germany, you can choose any program and keep switching between programs as and when you want based on your interest. And you have two different types of universities, like I showed you in the previous slide. Yeah, so you have the main university and you have the University of Applied Sciences. So the University of Applied Sciences is basically much more focused towards um, applications, towards real time things, and so on. Yeah, whereas the university education is much more rigorous in terms of the academics, and then lends you towards your doctoral studies. Okay, so you can choose a program based on your interest, whether you go to an applied sciences university or whether you go to a normal to a regular university. So what are the to-dos? I insist that all the students who are in schools, they should do internships. And this, so what in German is called practicum. You have to do this. The schools require you to do a regular internship once you are in the 10th grade or something like this, but you have to do this much more often. And when we evaluate applicants who want to apply for bachelors and or masters or something like this, we actually lay a lot of stress on these internships. So internships are extremely important. Keep suggesting your children to do internships. Summer jobs. Summer jobs are not simply just to go to for a vacation. So beyond a particular point, in summer, do some kind of thing that actually contributes towards your career. And finally, of course, grades. Yeah, if you want to get into a very good biological program in Heidelberg or something like this, you have to have very top grades. Yeah, so you're talking upwards of 1.2, 1.1, and so on. So grades are important, but I would suggest the first 2 points of internship and summer jobs will actually outweigh your grade point. Now, if you want to apply for bachelor's, so what do you do? So typically you will apply in state. In state, your chances are very high, although very competitive, especially if you are in Baden-Württemberg or in Bayern. They tend to get extremely difficult. But applying in state, you have a much higher chance. The second thing is, if you're interested in STEM education, then please have a number of apply to a number of schools and focus on mathematics. Because unfortunately, one of the leveraging points in the university education is that in the first semester, mathematics is going to be very hard. It's going to be almost exponential from the school education. And this is going to cause a lot of problems, because most of the people will not be able to pass the first level mathematics almost immediately. So focus on mathematics. And the third is, try to get jobs. Try to get university jobs. So what we call the HEV jobs. Yeah. So this is the research jobs that most labs have. And just go and get into these jobs so that um, your education is not only complemented uh, by by the theoretical lectures, but also by what you can actually do. And this is very, very, very important. So these three things, yeah, mathematics is very important. Most people ignore this, and at the end of the day, they'll end up having a problem with this course. So how do you find a program? The best way to do it is through DAAD. So this is one of the most important websites that Germany has developed, and here you can find almost anything by your choice, and they give you a lot of information about every single program and every single university. So please, I would suggest both to the students and the parents to always go into DAAD and then check for the courses of their interest. The second thing is that most often in Germany, your STEM and MINT education is pretty much well represented. So you don't have to really bother about the the quality of the university, because they are almost at the same level. And finally, there is this website which I put out here, which is called the National Mint Forum, for people who want to really go into science and technology. And this gives you an overview of the different programs that are available. So going further, so how do we do it? In Germany, in general, in Europe, you have three different ways of going further from your bachelor's to your master's. So you have your universities. So you either directly register in a university, or you register in a research organization, or you register in an industry, and all of them will lead to something. So the research organizations in Germany are multiple. So it is probably very wise to check organizations like Helmholtz, Max Planck, Fraunhofer, Leibniz, and so on, which are um, actually nationally funded. So universities in Germany are actually state funded. Research organizations are funded by the government, and industries are independent. So it's very interesting that all of these can actually come together, and if you can actually find a program where you find some kind of an opening position, then it's the best way to go through. And keep checking all these websites, because Helmholtz and Max Planck and Fraunhofer, they keep offering masters and PhD programs almost every day. And then that brings me to this thing of interdisciplinarity. Yeah. So what happens with this kind of an approach is that you are able to actually spend time in many different organizations, and that gives you a lot of scope for understanding how interdisciplinary science works. And that is also one of the most important things in the modern world. So what are the don'ts? Actually, most of the times what I see is incomplete documents. So most of the people who apply, they just don't send the right documents. So as I said, I mean, my talk is on the practicality of the entire thing. Yeah. So please look at all the documents that you have to send and make sure that they are not incomplete. Never apply to only one university. There are so many different universities, and please keep applying. And it is important that you apply to more than one university, because the number of positions are very limited. And finally, if you really get in, one of the drawbacks, uh, at least in the German context, is the housing. So start to start to already look for housing, and yeah, good luck with that. So what are my final thoughts? The final thoughts are absolutely internships. Keep doing internships and summer jobs. That is the most important thing, and that will get you uh, above the level where a normal applicant actually applies. Mathematics at school level is extremely important, because irrespective of your course, you have to do a mathematics course, and therefore school level mathematics, try to max it. And finally, if you're interested in STEM and Mint education, then already start to do something like order Arduinos or Raspberry Pis or something like this, and then start to play around with it at home. And this will really help you, because irrespective of the course that you take, this is of will really up your resume. So finally, if you're interested in doing an internship or something like this, here is my contact detail, and then you can send me an email, and then I would be very glad to host any of you. And then I'm now open to questions and
Yes, that was a very nice presentation, Dr. Benavali. So I really appreciate the time that you have taken to get us to understand the basic details about the different kinds of school systems and the process of getting to an university. Now, for me, it was really very interesting to know that we have 5 different streams of higher education. Normally, like you very rightly mentioned, not many actually talk about these things. We always only look at university, or if not in an university, maybe at a University of Applied Sciences like the Fachhochschule. Very interesting. And yeah, I think we will now open it up for the Q&A session, and then we will come to the vote of thanks. So, like I said, I request you all to, if you're comfortable, turn on your videos and ask your questions to either of the speakers. Um, or if you would like to rather leave it in the chat window, we can still take it up. So, participants, it's open to you now.
Hello, Malati. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Okay. The question to Dr. Ravinder. He put raspberry and Arduino. What is that?
Arduino.
yeah. So these are small electronic kits. So which using which you can actually develop some small things at home. So you can connect it to your laptop or to your computer, and then you can program it to do things.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ravinder, for your wonderful, explanation about that the higher education in Germany. So I have a couple of questions. So my first question is about the higher education for the Indian students,
Mhm.
because my daughter goes 12th standard this year,
Mhm.
and she will be finishing that at the 12th standard, and then she will be looking for that the higher education in Germany,
Mhm.
especially, right? So what kind of the entrance or the how we need to apply for that admission? She's there in India, but I'm here in Europe. So I want to find out that the right university for her to apply that admission. Is there any preliminary examination or entrance test which she has to complete before she apply for that the admission in German university, or what kind of things? So if you
So
can explain more, then it will be.
yeah, so usually for bachelors there is no standard examination or something like this.
Mm-hmm.
But if she is looking for an English program,
Mm-hmm.
then your options are limited. So there are there are not too many places where you will immediately start with an English bachelor's program unless you go to a private university.
Oh, okay.
But having said that, there are now in the meanwhile dual courses where you can apply.
Okay.
But there are no exams, or there is nothing so stringent, and usually Indian students they actually excel. So so they're very good, and yeah, so from the feedback that we have is from the Indian students is very good. um, the thing is, as I said, I mean, go to this website called DAAD,
Mm-hmm.
and then you will find even bachelor programs for which are taught in English.
Oh, okay. Okay. So what would be the best approach for putting the admission either in the government aided universities or the private universities?
So most universities in Germany are government aided. Yeah. So I mean, so they are all completely government. So except for a few private universities
Mm-hmm.
where they will, yeah, it'll be quite a, yeah, it'll be expensive,
Mm-hmm.
but it can be in English. So that's the trade off.
Okay. Okay. If it is a private institution or university, so how would be that the course fee? I mean, maybe you can give that some rough
I think
amount.
they're at the same standard, because most of the students the most of the people who are sitting in the course are also part of the regular stream.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So it's absolutely top level.
And the standard is okay, but what about that course fee? I mean,
Course fee, you're looking almost like something between 10,000 and 15,000 euros per year,
oh, per year. Okay. Okay.
which is still less than what you would do when you're trying to get into America or something like this. I don't know. Switzerland probably is something different, and Dr. Krishna Kumar can talk about Switzerland. But in Germany, it's typically between 10 and 15,000 euros.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I mean, if I may add, the website that Dr. Peravali had put up, the daad.de, it
Mm-hmm.
gives even the details about the course fee,
Absolutely,
the application requirements. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
every single information is available there.
absolutely.
Regard to all the courses available in Germany, it is not just for bachelors; it's also for masters.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
You
Thank
can,
you. Thank you, Maladi.
that's the first website that we normally advise people to look up, and you get a good, a decent idea about how you can go about.
Yeah.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah.
And another question I have is about that the language test. So does the university require any language test before coming to that or apply for that admission?
Mostly not, but it is recommended.
Oh, it is recommended. Okay.
Yeah. So if you have a B2 level of German knowledge or something like this, then it's recommended.
Okay. Good. So if everything is okay, I mean the university ready to offer that the education for any student. So I think that the visa and other things that will be much easier, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, with visa, I have no real knowledge, but yeah, it should be quite straightforward.
Okay, sounds good. Yep. Thank you, Ravindra. That's
Yeah.
all from my side.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So we have one question. Again, I think it's also related to a German university application. So, how can we choose the subjects that would get us into a good university, and how good should the abitur be to get into a good university? I think you already answered that with regard to the study of biological subjects in Heidelberg. Anywhere upwards of 1.2, 1.1. My God, it's only one after that. But maybe you could if you could talk about.
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking at natural sciences, I mean, Germany's strong point is natural sciences. So the main focus is how good you are in your biology, in your mathematics, and your physics. And if you want to get into biology, into something like Heidelberg or into one of these comparable universities, yeah, you have to have a very, very good grade. Now, having said that, what happens to a person who gets a 1.4, right? I mean, so it's not that your options are completely gone and then you can't do it anymore. It's just that probably you will not get into Heidelberg, but yeah, you have many other places which are comparable. So Heidelberg goes by basically by history. I mean, it's a fantastic place, and so therefore. So I really can't answer this question because what do you do? I mean, if you're what's the difference between a 95 out of 100 and a 99 by 100? Yeah. So very difficult, and so therefore in my talk I was always stressing one thing. Yeah, I was stressing internships. I was stressing these internships because these can tip the point. So if you have a reasonably good grade and you have these additional top-ons like your internships and so on, you get chosen over the others, as opposed to a person who is simply getting a good grade. And this actually starts to matter once you go ahead through masters, and we always look for people who have additional expertise or additional experience and so on. So internships, keep doing internships. There's no need to keep going to India every summer. So use that time to actually do certain things. And we are here. I mean, almost all the universities offer internships. So it's called freiwillige practicum. Yeah. So you can. So this is open internships. So you just write to a professor and then or a group leader like me, and then we just simply offer. And this benefits a lot. And in fact, I get a lot of people from India almost every year who just come for 2 or 3 months during their holidays or something like this, and then they spend a couple of months in my lab, and it benefits them a lot, because when they apply now, you have a much more a significant kind of very very good way of getting through the process.
And are these paid internships, or they are?
So we have two ways of doing it. So we have paid and we have voluntary.
Okay.
So if the student is already in bachelor's, then we will do a paid.
Okay.
And if it is if the student is not has not still completed the first or second year of bachelor's, then it will be voluntary, but usually it will be paid.
Okay. So what could you please very briefly explain about the application process? Is it very you shared your email ID, can people
They can
write
just
to
write
you?
to me, but they have to have a good interest in biology and in mathematical biology, and then we will have a brief interview, and then we go to the next step.
Okay. Dr. Krishna Kumar, do we have something like that at the University of Geneva also?
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to, there are similar things. I think their system, in fact, the Swiss system is very much based on the German model. So we have exactly similar things like universities of applied sciences, the professionalizing universities, and all that is exactly similar. I just wanted to complete the answer. Of course, I think most of the people I see are interested in higher education in Germany, but just complete to give a more complete picture in terms of the possibilities. For example, there seem to be some differences. For example, in terms of the fees in the Swiss universities is very, very, very nominal, like $1,000 per year. So the Swiss public universities is extremely. That's why I said it's almost nothing at all compared to as we were saying, for example, 15,000, or if you go to the US, 30,000. So this is $1,000 per year because it's heavily subsidized and all these public universities. And one other thing is that it seems to be also different in terms of entry level requirements. For people coming from India, for example, there will be a language test. Of course, you might have a certificate in terms of B2 or whatever in the language, but you have to go through a language test. But it's easy. I can say that it's easy. I mean, in the sense it's easy to pass if you have a minimum level. But there will be a language test. And sometimes for people joining the bachelor's here, it will also, they might ask for 1 or 2 years of bachelor's from India, depending on the university, especially in a university which has come after here. The system of education goes through 13 years of schooling. The high school is 13 years. And so people have done only 1 year, 12 years of schooling in other places. They might be asked to come after 1 year of bachelor's or 1 year of something else. So they may be the entry requirements again can be different, but there are websites. I mean, in case people are interested, there are websites which clearly say what is required, so that shouldn't be a problem. You can also share my ID. I can write it on the chat box if you want, if anybody is interested in higher education in Switzerland. Another thing I wanted to say is that, you were talking about internship. I think most of the time the selection happens. One thing I wanted to say also is that Swiss the students coming out of the Swiss high school with a Swiss diploma, they all get in. There is no selection. So all the people with a Swiss high school diploma will get a place in a Swiss university. There is absolutely no selection there. So there is no question of not getting in. Only field where they may be, even then they get in, and then maybe a high filter at the end of the first year, which is a medicine. But other than that, I think everybody who's coming out of a Swiss education system and who wants to get in do a bachelor's in a Swiss university will automatically given entry. But of course that means, and that's a very kind of based on a very socialistic democratic view on education, that it should be accessible to everybody. But then, which means that, of course, you can get in with a Swiss maturity, called the maturity, or a gymnasium, and in the German part, it's called a gymnasium. And then you have to, but the first year, there will be a selection. So, at the end of the first year, there could be a huge dropout because a lot of people get in because there is no selection. And then at the end of the first year, they realize that you still need to do hard work to get good grades, and therefore they drop out because they don't pass. But otherwise, that is good. But for people with other diplomas, like a French, high school diploma or an international baccalaureate, there are minimum requirements. But with a Swiss maturity, you automatically get it. And therefore, the requirement for internship, I think internships are appreciated, but I don't think that's a must in terms of the entry will depend on that. And especially, at the bachelor's level. At the master's level, it's a different. There is selection.
I mean, there's a little bit of a confusion here because so my point was the 10,000 euros or 50,000 euros were for a private university.
Okay.
It's not for the regular normal public university. So public university, you don't pay anything. So you pay $100 a semester or something like this.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so, then it's very simple.
And then secondly, also that almost everybody who passes the high school diploma will get into some kind of program. So there may not be of your choice, but you will definitely get in. So if you're going through the gymnasium process, so you will get into some kind of a university program. So I think, as you said, I mean, the German and the Swiss system are pretty much parallel. I mean, they're very comparable. And then you have private universities where you have to pay a lot, but so that's a choice people make. And a lot of Indian families send their children here because it's relatively cheaper to send them here. I mean, I'm trying to be a little bit practical here, and so they get admission purely on the basis of the fact that you're able to pay $10,000.
Also, one more thing I should say in this connection between private and public universities. In general, it's the public universities, I think it's the case in Germany, are of high quality. So mostly, even if you pay a lot and go to a private university, some of the private universities may not even be recognized when you want to do when you have a bachelor's from a private university and then you want to do a master's in a public university, they may ask you to do one more year. So here, for example, in Geneva University, if you come from a private, there are some Bachelor and other private universities. The entry is not automatic from one level to the other. So the idea is to get into a public university. They have high quality, and the quality, the private universities are extremely variable in quality and not even recognized in their degrees may not be recognized in the public university. So you have to be careful about choosing a private university. Maybe entry may be okay, but then you may be stuck very, very quickly to go for higher education.
Exactly. I mean, so if the private university is somehow associated with a major university, then you're fine.
Yeah.
But otherwise,
they're regarded the public universities look at the private universities.
And then you have to be a little bit careful. So if you have this association with the main university, then you're more or less okay.
Yeah. But I guess that's a very, very important or a very pertinent point to note, that the public universities are seen at a higher level, and therefore one should be careful at the time of application and not choose a university thinking that it would be good because it is a private university.
Absolutely. I mean,
It's the other way
there's
around.
simply no doubt. Yeah, I mean, yeah. Actually, the other way around. Yeah. So the public universities are at a much higher level,
Yeah.
at a very uniform level.
Yeah.
So
True.
unlike in the US, where the universities can be graded, in Europe, at least in Germany and Switzerland, and a couple of other places, um, most of the public universities are at the same level.
And then one more thing, I think it's also differentiate. I mean, Switzerland and Germany are similar, but you have what is called the universities, and you have what is called the Hochschule. I mean, the high school, the what I don't know. Hochschule, but in Switzerland, for example, the highest level is the university, and then the university, haute école. We call it haute école, so that means that, I mean, in French it's called the haute école, and in German haute school. They lot of the time they come slightly lower, except for the engineering colleges, which are similar. But in France, it's the other way around. In France, the haute école are in fact considered higher, more higher quality than the university. So there, if you go to a haute école of management or other things like that, you are at the topmost university, of topmost higher education institutions. So you have to be careful when you look at an education system. Please be careful to understand the different levels. Otherwise, you have to get yourself informed from somebody who knows the thing. So I
because in Germany, for example, so the university is considered to be the highest level. So the Fachhochschule is then going to be one level below.
Yeah, exactly. In Switzerland too, but in France it's the other way around. What they call are top, more top. I mean, better than the university.
And that's a good point.
You have to know the local system. I'm writing my.
Please, Dr. Peravali and Dr. Krishna Kumar, please leave your contact details in the chat window so the participants can.
If we have that contact phone number, so that will be great. So, I mean, if you have any query, then we can reach out them and get a clarification.
I can send my email.
Email would be better. Email option would be better. They can probably reply a lot more in detail and at the time of their convenience. I think that would be better.
Thank you. Dr. Ravindra, I have one more question. I mean, you said that the government university, they don't charge any semester fee or something like that, right? But for the foreign students, are they offering any scholarship?
Almost nothing.
No, nothing.
So usually how it happens is that the students come here, because I mean the students are not really paying anything, right? I mean, you're paying 150 euros per semester. So so at bachelor level there's no scholarship. So what usually happens is that's why I put in one of my slides that you start to look for student jobs. And we have enormous number of possibilities for student jobs. We are always looking for students, and we need help in the labs.
Okay, so if they go to that summer jobs, how much they get? I mean, how much hours they can work and how much they get?
So you can work up to 40 hours, and if you want to be below the taxation limit, then you get something like about 500 euros or 450 euros per month.
Okay, so the 40 hours, that is for per week or per month or something?
40 euros for 40 hours per month.
Per month, okay.
3 hours per week is full time.
Yeah, so it would be ridiculous.
See, in Switzerland, it's about maximum 20 hours per week, but that is also very tough because you will have to do your studies in parallel, so that is very tough.
True.
But then you also have at the bachelor's levels, actually, doctor was saying that Peravali was saying that it is not possible to get scholarships, but from the master's level onward, there are possibilities.
Then it's possible,
And then we should also find out about possible scholarships or funding possibilities in India, because I know that Indian government now has a lot of possibilities for people going abroad, and so I think you should check it out for some kind of funding possibilities by the Indian government.
Yeah, again through DAAD, right? I mean,
Yeah.
so there is something. So there is this Indo-German program where you can register yourself in an Indian university, and then you can come here for actually doing your PhD or something like that. So usually this works for PhD. Yeah, so it's not for masters and
PhD,
bachelors.
definitely you have scholarships, but even at sometimes masters, for example, the Swiss embassy was saying that at the master's level, the Swiss embassy is giving some scholarships to deserving students from India to come and do the master's here.
Oh, that's
so
nice. That's
Swiss
nice.
embassy in India. So there are possibilities, and then I know, as I said, the Ministry of Education in India also has some possibilities of some funding possibilities. Because here the fees, as Dr. Peravali was saying, the fees is not high. But the living expenses, especially in Switzerland, I can say they're extremely high.
Yeah,
very high.
Yeah.
So you need some source of income to sustain, to manage here. So you will either need a scholarship or some working, but working I have seen, in my experience, I've seen people who work at the bachelor's level. It does tell on their performance in the exams. So you have to be careful not to get into too much of a working for a living. I think you need some kind of a non-work funding.
Dr. Krishna Kumar, if I may, I mean, just as the German university system has this website, which is daad.de, is there something like that available for Switzerland, where anyone can go and have an overview of all the programs available across Switzerland?
I don't know whether there's a central thing, because Switzerland is a very federal. I mean, it's federal really to the letter. In terms of the Swiss universities, they're all canton based. So Geneva Universities is mainly funded by the canton of Geneva, and the programs offered, everything is decided at the cantonal level. So the difference, the one canton's way of doing things will be very different from another canton's way of doing things. So at the cantonal level, yes, you will have information about. There are only 8 Swiss. Switzerland is a very small country compared to Germany. There are only 8 Swiss universities. So the university cantons will have information about their university. But I don't know whether there's a federal place where you get everything about all the universities, because even the requirements, the recognitions are all, they're all part of the European system. But requirements in terms of what are the conditions for people coming from India may be different from one canton to the other. So you will have to go visit that particular canton, the university of that particular canton, to get the information, as things do change from one canton to the other. So that's a relevant question. I can look for things. There may be just general information about, for example, the scholarships, as I said. It's called Swiss Excellence Scholarships, but that's at the master's PhD level. There are central websites. But at the bachelor's level, you really have to go and look at each university. But as I said, there are 8 Swiss universities and then 2 engineering colleges, because the Swiss universities themselves don't have don't offer engineering degrees. So there is the ETH in Zurich, which is highly ranked even among the top 12 in the whole world, which is the engineering college in Zurich, and the engineering college in Lausanne. So there are these 2 plus 8. So that's all the 10 universities academically. And then you have all the universities of applied sciences in addition.
Thank you, Jaya Krishna Kumar.
Yeah.
Ravindra, I have one more question.
Yeah, sure.
Regarding that job market. I know that the Germany is a huge job market open for that foreigners and the local people. But post completion of that university degree for that foreign students, right? The university will provide that any assistance to get that job. Within Germany or outside of Germany, that kind of.
So most universities have every semester we have job markets.
Oh, okay.
So we have companies and then different other research institutions. So that's why I divided my when I showed you the slide, I said there are research institutes and there are industries. So all of these will come every semester to kind of give options to the students.
Oh, okay, great.
Not that everybody will get it, but yeah, there are options.
Yeah, of course. I mean, those who have that knowledge and that they are not suitable for that organization, so definitely they will select.
There are there are also career fairs. Yeah, this is exactly what we're talking about. So here it will be once a year. But I should say, I don't know about Germany, but I should say, going from coming here for university education or higher education, getting a visa, as you were asking previously, getting a visa is very easy. So getting a student visa is very easy. But then getting a work permit is very tough. I should say, at least in Switzerland, is very tough. Because they give preference to European citizens.
Yeah,
I mean,
true.
First preference, of course, there's Swiss, and then the first Swiss, and at the same level you have the Europeans. So the non-Europeans come as a second level, and there they have to show by, I think, the requirement, they have to show that they haven't found a qualified Swiss or European who can do the job, and therefore they definitely need this other person who is non-European. But having said that, Geneva, for example, is a place where there are so many international organizations. You have multinationals. You have all the UN system is there, the World Health Organization, the International Telecommunications Union. So all those don't come into the Swiss system. So there you can get in and they get you the permit, I mean the work permit or the residence permit for you. So the entry into Swiss labor market may be tough, but the entry into a multinational, a non-governmental organization, a governmental organization like the UN, as I said, all the other ILO, you name any international organization, Geneva is the highest concentration in terms of international organizations, governmental as well as non-governmental. And Zurich, for example, is the highest concentration in terms of businesses, multinational businesses and multinational firms.
And IT also.
IT, exactly, IT. So these are places where you can get in. They provided as you say, you're suitable for the job. There you can get in. I mean, the problem of work permit doesn't arise, but it does arise if you want to go into the Swiss labor market.
Participants, I mean, audience, any other questions you have? Okay.
Hello.
I have. Yeah, please go ahead.
I'm Suja here.
Yeah, Suja. Please go ahead. Yeah.
Thank you to both the eminent speakers. It had been such an enriching talk. I would like to ask Dr. Peravali regarding the practicum. You mentioned about the practicum from bachelor's level. Like, did I hear it right? Like, it's only from the bachelor's level. The students doing the 11th and 12th, are they also eligible for the practicum in the universities?
So we start already from the 9th grade of school.
Okay, that's amazing.
So, So the practicum is even before applying for your bachelor's.
Okay.
And by the German system, you have a requirement that you have to do a practicum when you're in the 10th grade.
Yes, they do have this year. I have a 16-year-old son who's doing
exactly. So he will have to do a practicum. There he has no choice. And but what I am suggesting is that in addition to this, that you do some more.
Okay, during the 11th and 12th grade.
Exactly. So whenever you have a break or a spring break or something like this, and then just keep doing practicums, and then you write to us, and then we usually offer these kind of practicums.
Perfect. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, no problem.
Any other question? I have a question with regard to the university rankings. Often we get, when we search for the university rankings, we always come across the QS ranking. And we don't have very many universities from Europe being ranked there, at least in the top 10 or top 25 or even top 50. So how do we stake our claim to glory?
Yeah, I think there's a very simple answer to this, because the rankings are based on certain criteria, right? I mean, how big your library is, how large your university is in terms of space, and how many people that you take in every semester, and so on. So it's a kind of a skewed ranking. I wouldn't go by this international ranking, and it's almost meaningless. It's not to say that MIT is not the number one, or Stanford is not very good, or something like this. It is just that the way that you rank the parameters just simply don't fit into the German ranking system, purely because of certain criteria that we cannot satisfy. Yeah, you simply do not have those kind of parameters that you will be able to meet.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with that. Although I would say that you can look at rankings within Europe, because Europe is not comparable with the US, because the circumstances are very different. The private university, because mostly, as I said, these are public universities, right? So I think even in terms of performance, I always say, you take the top 1% in, obviously they're all going to be bright. But you take everybody in, and then you make them go into the top 1% or 5% or 10%, that's where the credit lies, right? So European universities are all public, and they take everybody in, the whole range, the whole distribution is in. So I think, so there are certain criteria which, do not necessarily, do not necessarily match the European way approach. But I think within Europe, you can look at rankings. They give an indication, and the ranking is always like, you don't want to necessarily choose the top ones, but you want to know which one is better than which one. That way, I think it's good. So if our university is ranked better than another universities, whatever be most of the other criteria, it will be better. So that it gives you an order, not necessarily in terms of which one is at the top, which one is at the bottom, but the order generally what we have, because there have been articles. This is a very, very popular topic among the academicians. There have been articles written on their performance, this and that. One Nobel Prize, for example, in a university really goes to the top, right? That one Nobel Prize makes a huge difference. And so that kind of thing. So the rankings are I think, an indication. You cannot completely, I think I would not completely ignore that, but there are also rankings within fields, and there are other rankings. There's the QS one, but there's also a ranking. For example, there is a sustainability ranking of universities. That's very interesting. It was launched a few years ago. So they rank universities in terms of how they offer, how sustainable the university itself is. I mean, how the programs are conceived, and how the, for example, cafeteria is, and other things. So there are different rankings available. This is Times Higher Education, which does the sustainability rankings based on the SDGs. You have the Sustainable Development Goals of the UN, and those are based on those SDG rankings. SDGs, based on SDGs, they do the ranking. So, but then I think within Europe, it will generally, you can look at them, because they all follow a similar system, a similar approach. So the rankings within the continent will be very useful.
So is there a website that we can refer to?
The QS ranking, I think you Google, you will definitely get it. Yeah.
No, the QS rankings are available to get an idea about the rankings of the universities within Europe.
Yes, I am. Yeah, there is. So I can send you the link here.
Okay, yeah. So we can leave that later when we publish this on YouTube. Yeah. So are there any other questions? I think we have overshot the time, but I think we had a very good, very useful session from both the speakers. So I don't think we have any other questions, so we will proceed with the vote of thanks. So that was an amazing and very useful webinar, I should say. And I would like to first start by thanking the audience, the participants of the webinar, without whom this session wouldn't have been as interesting as it is now. So thank you all for taking this time out and join us. Some of them at very short notice were able to join this webinar. I hope they found this useful. I really did, and I'm really. I do not have kids who are about to join the university, but nevertheless, I think this would definitely be useful for even parents or students who are still in the school. Like Dr. Piravali had given quite a few tips for the school students themselves as to how they can improve upon themselves. What can they do to ensure that they are at a good university, and how the entire journey to land up with a degree from a good university was mapped out by Dr. Piravali. I really appreciate that. I would like to start by thanking Dr. Krishna Kumar for the time that she had taken out and share with us not just what education is all about. It's also about overcoming the barriers of language in Europe. Yes, I mean, Europe is a huge continent, and we have different countries, each with their own language, of which they are very proud. And a university degree from any one of these countries does involve some language challenges, but also she mentions that coming from India, we are very, very good at learning a foreign language. I think we definitely are good at it, and we should not restrict ourselves from pursuing a higher education in Europe simply because of the language. And I also liked the fact that she mentioned that there is a harmonization of the ECTS, the credits, which offers this mobility across Europe. So I could do a bachelor's in the Netherlands, and then I can continue to do my master's in the Switzerland, and then come to Germany to do a PhD. I mean, that's amazing. Thank you, Dr. Krishna Kumar, for highlighting this point and enlightening us on this. So once again, thank you so much for taking your time out on the Sunday evening and joining us to talk about the higher education in Europe.
Thank you, Malati. Thanks for organizing this one, and I would like to give a big thanks to Dr. Jaya Krishna Kumar and Ravindra. They have given that wonderful the details about that the higher education. So that is very, very amazing and very useful to everybody, at least for me, and I believe that everyone also.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the invitation.
I would like to also conclude my thanks to Dr. Piravali. Thank you, sir, for taking this time out to talk about the different school systems. I mean, his topic was very specific to Germany. And like I mentioned earlier, it was very interesting to know about the 5 different streams of higher education in Europe. And what I really liked was he highlighted time and again the importance of doing internships, the importance of doing summer jobs that are related to your course of study or related to your passion. That is something that would, that's the kind of, it helps the students to differentiate themselves from another applicant who has a similar grade. I think that's really very important and very interesting and very useful pointer, I should say. And also it was very interesting for me to note that many of these research organizations also offer master programs and also internships from time to time. I think it's a point to note. So thank you, sir, for this enlightening session. We really enjoyed the speech from both the speakers, and I'm sure our audience are also going to derive the benefit out of it. Thank you so much once again for your time and your patience for being with us on this Swasti Shri webinar, which is the 6th in the series. Thank you so much, and have a lovely evening, all of you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Have a nice day.
I just want to thank Malati once again and the organizers for having invited me to this webinar. I was very happy to participate, and I really like the questions. I think that shows a lot of interest in terms of wanting to know more about the higher education. Thanks.
Thank you.
Namaste.
Thank you. Namaste.